I see a lot of familiar faces actually, and I think this is a popular topic and also involved on-site and online instructors. So what we are going to do today?
So we're going to share in our experience for blended learning, which is kind of like how we can utilize both on-site advantages with online advantages. We're going to talk about how collaboration works on-site, and we're going to talk about how collaboration works online and how those two can work together.
So I'm just going to do a really quick show of hands. And how many of you thinking that you are teaching a blended learning course? Either you're online or on-site, David. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Oh, okay. Three hands. And the others?
By
don't know.
Do you mean we're teaching it online and on-site? Or
what do you think when we say by blended learning?
Yeah, when you hear the term blended
Yeah, when
learning.
you heard
well,
blended
I
learning.
think maybe using some of the content that you're teaching online and implementing it into your on-site course, or vice versa, maybe recording a demo from on-site and then using it in the online course, which I'm not currently doing.
Okay, so let's see the definition. So by a kind of official, I think you guys got to step outside out of the view. So blended learning, in a way, it's some form you're using some kind of a digital tools, either it's a video or some kind of content, and to teach in your class. If you kind of broaden this sense, and how many of you thinking you are actually teaching a blended learning class? Not even more, probably a few more, right? You probably are using kind of videos, and I know, David, you're experimenting with flipped classrooms, and that's a lot of video teaching everything. So another definition is basically mixing and matching the face-to-face time and online learning time.
Can I talk about that really quick? So one thing that that's available to you guys that I believe would qualify as blended learning is being able to open up online discussions for on-site classes. How many of you know that you can do that?
Good.
For those of you that don't know that you can do it and you want to, just let your department director know, and they can work with online education to open up those on-site or the online discussions for the on-site classes. It's good to kind of keep our on-site instructors will use it to keep the conversation going of the class throughout the week and not just during the class time.
Is that just like a dedicated discussion board for an on-site class?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, that would require that the two courses align almost identically.
No.
No.
It does not.
It does
It's
not.
You're not opening up a new section of a class. It's just literally a message board that you can go in and create an area.
It's an empty. It starts out as an empty message board, and the instructor teaching the course can go through and create topics that are specific to the on-site sections. Ideally, on-site and online should sync up anyway, but if they're not, it won't get in the way of it.
Okay.
So what is it called when we talk within the department? A message board? Or
Discussion.
Discussion board.
You want to open up the discussion for the on-site section,
Okay.
and you just list specifically what class, what course number, and what section, and
Who would we ask to do that?
you can ask your department director or your coordinator, whoever it might be. You could also ask online help desk directly. They'll then go back and ask the department or whoever's in charge of approving that.
We have an interesting situation where our online and on-site sections want to participate together in the discussion. How would we do that?
We're actually going to talk
About that. We're going to talk about that, and then we also have the other attorney here, and it's especially for that purpose. Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about currently at Academy the different models. We have the on-site students. How many of you are teaching on-site classes? Half of them. I teach both, and so for the on-site students, we know the advantage for on-site students is they have the face-to-face time with the instructors. That's awesome for students, but the challenge for the on-site students is typically a content overload. I have to get all these content in with my 2.5 hours. If I really can't lecture for 2.5 hours, I teach coding classes. I know Fred teaches coding classes, and Charlie, you teach
Scripting
and everything. If I lecture 2.5 hours, they're going to explode anyway. So we have another method, is teaching online. So how many of you are teaching online? Good mix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so for the online-only students, you all know since a lot of you are teaching online, the advantages of the course is very structured, right? It's laid out from the beginning, step by step, page by page, or session by session. And it's a very personalized learning, right? So it's very tailored to that online student. That's kind of an advantage. Of course, we all know the challenges of teaching online students, and that's that they're very isolated. They're by themselves. They're not in the classroom, and they don't have that advantage of the face-to-face time with the instructor typically. And this is actually a big complaint from a lot of online students, is there's no sense of community among their cohort, their group.
So we also have a huge group of students. They take some classes on site and some classes online.
Yeah, so those students are referred to as hybrid students, and they're familiar with both methods of teaching. They've been taking on-site classes as well as online classes, and the biggest challenge with that is the inconsistency. And it also becomes very apparent to them that there are distinct advantages to online and distinct advantages to on-site, and they kind of want the best of both worlds. Typically they take liberal arts classes online and maybe studio classes on site, or depending on their personal situation, they might take studio classes online as well.
So we want to talk about blended learning. You want to talk a little bit
Sure.
about our ideas
Yeah.
why?
So my interest in blended learning came from seeing our student retention numbers online being drastically different than our student retention numbers on site. That my gut immediately went to student engagement. And so what we want to do is try to engage our students more online. And how do we do that? On-site has an advantage because students have to wake up in the morning and they have to come to class at a certain point of time. So they're naturally more engaged in the class. Online students can pull their laptop in bed and there's nothing that's forcing them to be there. And so what we want to try to do is to have more synchronous interaction in our online classes. I know some departments have experimented by using Adobe Connect and doing like an hour group critique or something like that once a week. And that seems to work pretty well. The limitations with Adobe Connect that we found is that the resolution isn't where I think it needs to be. And since most of the work that we do in the School of Game Development is all done on like 1080p monitors, we're using YouTube live events for that. And it still gives the same kind of feedback in terms of like students can post questions and instructors can answer in real time. But ultimately, we want the best of both worlds. There's some things that are really awesome about online and some things that aren't so awesome about online. There's some things that are awesome about on-site and some things that aren't so awesome about on-site. And we kind of want to bring those two together, the face-to-face instruction, as well as being able to have some sort of persistent content in the class, whether it's recorded demo from the on-site section.
So to be able to do that, we need to make some adjustment on both sides, on the online side and the on-site side. So I teach mainly on-site courses. Right now, a lot of our on-site courses are traditional lecture format. We do a lot of lecture, at least for 3 hours, an hour and a half lecturing, and maybe a little bit exercise after that. And students that go home, do their project. Here's your homework. Here's your assignments. You do it. You come back next week and turn in your assignment. And it's kind of like a one-size-fits-all in a way, because I have a lot of our instructors are part-time instructors. They come in, teach for 3 hours, and then they answer emails afterwards a little bit, but there's not as much of the individual teaching as much as the on-site one. So we want to change our on-site section a little bit. What ideally I've been experimenting for a couple years now is what we call the flipped classrooms. We have other sections today actually talking about, more about flipped classrooms. Basically, is have students go outside the class and then they will view videos you recorded for them, and then read the material. So you ask them to read outside, and they will come into classroom to do exercise, hands-on experience in class. So that's what we're talking about, flipped classroom. And we'll do less individual projects. They have individual projects, but we're going to encourage them to do more of a collaborative projects together as a group projects. Typically, even earlier today, that when you portray a group project, everyone is, puzzled, frightened, or, frustrated. Everything students have challenged when they're doing group collaborative projects. So we want to focus on project-based learning instead of content-based learning. So on the on-site part, and then on the online part, this is what currently we're doing.
Currently, as most of you have raised your hands, we're teaching on site. It's an asynchronous lessons, right? It's that, as Charlie mentioned, the student can pull their laptop in their bedroom or on their kitchen table whenever they want, and it's asynchronous. You don't have to be there. It's a lot of individual projects. Some classes have some group projects, but the majority are individual projects. And it's content-based learning. It's the learning that's what's in the LMS is what they're going to learn. And then things that we want to do and we're experimenting with are asynchronous classes. And again, Charlie mentioned this earlier, where some courses are having students meet once a week with their instructor through Adobe Connect, or as Charlie did with in his workshops with some other software through YouTube. We have a lot more collaborative projects, and Z experimented with this last semester where it was on-site and online students collaborating together on a single project. So Z can talk more about that. And then also, again, project-based learning. So it's no longer just content, individual assignment. It's content, but then you're learning based on the project. And then we've also got the real-time on-site lessons and event broadcasting, which is, again, what Charlie had mentioned.
Yeah, so both sides, we make some adjustment. We'll bring both sides together closer, we're hoping. And there are some collaborative efforts in the past we've been working on in the game department.
Yeah, so we started out with collaborative assignments. Game 310 is an on-site collaborative class, and it's a required class for everyone who goes through our VFA. And then we've recently started doing the 498 series. One challenge that we've had with that is trying to build those online, because as you can see, each of the 498s are vastly different. Like we have a virtual reality project, we have Might and Blade, and do you know what Might and Blade's about? Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, but essentially we have 3 collaborative projects that are wildly different, and how do you put something like that online? That's been one of our biggest issues. But we do have 2 collaborative classes that are required, one at the BFA level and one at the MFA level, and that's been working out pretty well.
So for W&M?
Yeah, so for W&M, we're also doing collaborative projects on site. One of our big ones is generative art and code. It's a really popular class with students, and that, again, is an on-site collaborative project. And then we also do collaborative projects with other departments, such as industrial design with our automotive UI course, and then the interactive with illustration, the interactive digital magazine. And again, these courses are, as Charlie mentioned, we're having trouble getting them online and figuring out how we can do that.
Now these 3 courses that are online right now, it's all on-site right now. So I know game department, you guys did some online collaboratives, right?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we have a Game 310, which is Prototype Production Studio. And essentially students have to work on 2 projects throughout the course of the semester. The first one, they have to pick one game engine. The second project, they have to pick a different game engine. They learn a lot from that first project. We used to have it just one project over the whole course of the semester, but we found that students benefited better from having a chance to fail first and then a chance to learn from those failures and succeed with that second project. With Game 651, it's essentially the same kind of experience except at the MFA level. Online, we've just rebuilt Game 310 to be collaborative. Previously, it was based on individual projects because we didn't understand how to do collaboration online. And now that we kind of do, hopefully, we're moving forward with that being collaborative online this fall. Game 651 has been collaborative online for since spring of 2013. And our plan for the 498s moving forward is to use the online group-directed study model, which is essentially building a library of resources for the student. As every project's going to be different, it's hard to have any kind of specificity in the online content. So we're going to choose to kind of go with the group-directed study model. It was mentioned by Ryan Baldwin like a while ago, and I think that's probably what we're going to run with. And hopefully it won't horribly fail.
So we want to show you an example of a collaborative online product.
This is an example of a collaborative project that students created in the spring 16 semester, and there were 5 students working on this. So this is their final, essentially. So you can see that there's a lot of detail that went into the environment. We created a main player character as well as AI, artificial intelligence character enemies with animations, got them all scripted in game. Really a lot of work went into this, and I would call this a pretty successful project. Of course, there's lots of things that are kind of wrong with it as well, but as with everything, it's a learning experience. So I wanted to kind of show what they ended up with, and then I want to go into kind of the workflow that we structured in the class for them to do it. This is a 100% collaborative online course. It's required for all MFA students. And I thought this was a pretty good outcome. So I'm going to get to this other area. This is one guy's area here, and when we get to this other area, you're going to see a very noticeable difference between the style and the design. If I don't die here, let me. All right. Okay. And so you're going to notice here it looks very different, and it looks like 2 different people did that. And one of the things that we realized through this project, as well as some others, is that when you give students separate areas to work on, you end up with them actually not collaborating as much as they should be. So I'm going to get into the workflow now. Just kind of wanted to show you these 2 different areas and how different they look and how different they play and feel. So if we go into the class, this was game 651. If anyone wants guest access to the course, let me know so you can check it out.
Oops.
Internet.
Want to talk about the rest?
Sure, I'll talk about it. We have several, probably about like Module 3 and Module 4 is where we start rolling out like the team-based tasks. So we're trying to figure out like how do we assess these students? If these projects are going to be different, how are we going to assess these students module to module? So the example that I gave here in the video is in assignment 4.1, it's called game tasks. And essentially what we do is we ask the students to come up with a list of, they talk amongst themselves, and we ask them to come up with a list of tasks that they're going to accomplish for the next week. And then the following week, they have to show screenshots of those tasks being implemented in game. It might be a stepping stone, like I'm going to do the first part of this. Here's a screenshot of the first part of that. And then, so in Module 4, they come up with that task list. Module 5, they come up with screenshots showing that those tasks have been implemented, as well as coming up with a new list for the following week. And those are credit, no credit assignments because it's hard to assess someone on a list of tasks that's obviously a work in progress. If you notice in Module 5, we have the game tasks where they post up their tasks, but then we also have another assignment here called First Playable. And the way that we broke up this class was we have a few deliverable milestones in the class that correlate to milestones in the game development industry. And we assess them on their work up to that point. Essentially, it's another work in progress, but that's where we give letter grades. And we have a very clear requirement of what they need to submit. And they need to submit a list of changes that they've added to the game, as well as the screenshots of those changes being implemented. And then I'll go and download their game, play through it, and write them a list of feedback on it so that they have a list of things at a high level that we need to that the team needs to accomplish for the following milestone. And yeah, that was pretty much it.
So is it again that students come with a list of tasks each will do, is it again that you basically dissect the whole thing and this student is doing this fragment and this?
Yeah. Oh, can you go back one slide really quick? I forgot something.
Might not go to the last screen. Oh.
Yeah. So along with each of the game task assignments, each module we have a discussion topic. That's the where students discuss their workflow, and that's where all of the chatter for the class goes. So we had like 7 for module 4. I think we had like 70 something posts from students as they're working out who's going to be doing what and that kind of thing. And then at the end of the module, once they've worked that out, that's when they post up their list of tasks.
And then, sorry, are those discussions broken up by team?
They would be. Essentially, in this class, we only had 5 students, so the whole student body was one team.
And in terms of grading, are you viewing the success of the overall project and giving it a quantitative grade, criteria, assessing results and giving each student the same grade?
No.
How do you break out what each student's true participation has been and what grade they individually deserve?
So we grade them based on the participation in those bulky like discussion topics,
Okay.
as well as their individual contributions to the game, like what they've said they're going to do and what they actually do.
Okay, so each student is composing his own list of things that he's contributing.
Right, and if the instructor doesn't feel that that's enough, then we say that in our weekly feedback of their task, like, hey, this one thing is only going to take you a couple hours. You need to do, X amount of hours worth of work. I think you need to add a few things, and usually I'll give them suggestions about what they need to add.
And then it's up to the students to figure out ways to communicate with each other to pull all of this together.
Exactly, and that's where the work comes.
Happens in the discussion.
That happens in the discussion. We've tried to have a Skype group in the past, and it didn't work out very well because students were like, well, we're talking here, but we need to talk here, and it wasn't. The discussion isn't ideal either because it's this kind of asynchronous thing. You don't know when people are online. You can't have a direct conversation with them. You might post something in response to what they posted and someone else had already, and it's not as smooth and streamlined as it should be, but it's by keeping it all there, it's a known quantity.
What are you using for the discussion again?
We're just using the regular discussion, the LMS discussion.
So for our department, I taught a lot of sessions with different sections, and it's easier for students, on-site students, to collaborate together. They see each other. Even there are different sessions, we can schedule appointment. We know they're all in town. They can come at the same time or some other time, make a schedule. So we find it actually really challenging, and when I start to experiment with online and on-site collaborations. So we eventually, ideally, what we want to do is that we actually really want to break down this separation. This is online, this is on-site, and we want them to be actually together, learning together. That's in a lot of our professionals, that's a real-world experience. I've worked with developers who are in Russia, Ukraine. I've worked with my content manager is actually in Mississippi and in all different places. We're not always together, and so we really want to bring that skill into our classroom as well. So that's one of the reasons that I started to experiment with online and on-site collaborations. So ideally, we really want to cross-list some classes, allowing students to take the same class online and on-site together. Because the advantage of that is that we can record our online sessions. We can provide the content to record our on-site sections and provide that content to our online student. We can also do live broadcasts like you guys did before, to feed that content to the online content. On the online side, we know we have a lot of content already built, exist on the online side, and we can use that content for our on-site. Sometimes there's no reason for me to reinvent the view. That's already, the content is already there. I don't need to recreate that video. It's already online. If I can give access to my students to see that, I don't need to record that video anymore. And also, the course content can really be used for our on-site instructions. we know we have workshops on site. We have different structure for online workshops. What if we can actually utilize the same workshops that the teachers can do on-site workshop and also contact the online students, do the live workshop, everyone utilize the same resources we have. So with this in mind, I experimented with online on-site collaboration with one of my really introductory level coding class. Think about these are the students. These are their first semester or second. Most of them are second semester students, undergraduate course. So they're really young. Actually, they never really had experience working with other people. So it became really challenging for them. So they have to figure out the space, how they are going to collaborate together, what kind of a tool to use to collaborate. I know you guys are using the content management, the learning management system online to do discussion boards. For our on-site students, they don't have the access to the online discussion board together, not the same board. So I actually created external resources for them to use to collaborate. We have a list of tools you can use that we're going to give you guys later on. So they have to figure out what tools together, how to communicate to each other. They're in different time zones. And I asked them to actually get to know each other first. So here you will see some of them, they're our hybrid students. So they are taking online classes, but they are actually in the area. So they actually met up. So these kids, for this group, they meet up.
I'm Maggie, and we are group 3. We are all same major. My name is Zheng. That's all.
So they met. That's one way of collaborate for them. But on the other hand, some other students, they couldn't meet, and then they are also supposed to make a video together. What they did a slideshow, put the slides together, and to make it happen. So students figure out their own way, how to actually communicate to each other. So the product is making a website together in different groups. This is a reasonable size of the class. It's about 15, 16 students. So it's about 4 or 5 students for each group. And they have to figure out how to actually work together. And some students says, okay, the work experience, it's good. We can actually get together. And then some says, it's really hard. We can't get in touch with this one person at all. We end up just ditch this person. That person never joined us. And then some others says, we figured out a way to work together. So you can see the experience is different, but that is one of their learning. It's part of the learning how to work with others together. So the assignments are divided into groups. The grades are given 2 different kinds of grades. Some grades are group grades, so it's everyone in the group is the same grade. But others, they actually critique each other, say how much my teammates did, how much I did, and how we actually work together. Based on that, individual also get their individual grades. They also have their separate goals. And they figure out a way to set up certain kind of goals. This is one of the groups. And then they set up what's our goal, and additionally what we need to do, and what's our task. They divided into different phases, and what are the contents we have to gather, how we're going to do it together, what's the schedule. They find out if one person delayed and everyone else suffers. So they definitely find that out in a hard way. And but they actually got together and got it to work. So now we start to think about, we want to bring more of these kind of a collaborative efforts together. And then that's when we started to talk with online education to Charles your group. Earlier you had a question, how do we actually facilitate this kind of collaborations for the online and the on-site students? And then so we are trying to work out some experiment space for students to work together. So you guys probably have questions and how that can work, and Charles can probably answer those questions later on in our question and answer section. And you want to talk about how do we facilitate this kind of collaboration?
One thing that we've done in game is we've pretty much every step that we've been making in this area, we've been working with online education on. We've been asking them about tools that we've been using. When I first built Game 651, it was using an external software called Perforce. It's a project management software it's a repository where you can upload files to, and it always keeps the latest version. If someone deletes all their work, they can just download it again. It's a version control software. The issue at the time was like, whoa, this is an external software. We don't know about this. And at that time, there was a transition, a sea change kind of happening with online education. And I'd say like the online education of like 2012, 2011 is no longer in existence, and their attitude is much more collaborative and cooperative. So at that time, we just had a conversation like, this is Perforce, this is what it is. It's an external, it's a software that's outside of the LMS, but yet it's hosted on Academy of Arc servers. Not all softwares are going to be hosted on Academy of Arc servers. But we still maintain that there's proof that is going to be uploaded into the LMS. So what we would have students do is they would take a screenshot of Perforce and their change list, which is a list of files that they've changed, along with a description of why they're changing those files. And that was part of the milestone for the 651 class. And then they would write a milestone summary of what they contributed, along with screenshots of what they added to the game. And so when we kind of figured that out together. And we break up what we want to have done by certain milestones, break those milestones up into certain class and then into tasks, and then hold the students accountable for those tasks. Sometimes they have a good reason, like, hey, this task is taking me longer than anticipated. I'm not going to fail them for that, because that happens in the game industry. You don't always know exactly how long a task is going to take. You have good estimates. So usually you can kind of suss out if that student's kind of making up excuses, or if that task is genuinely taking longer than anticipated.
So overall, we want to hold students accountable, right? Have them lead the project for instructors take a back row seat and as a facilitator.
Yeah, we want to be the facilitator, so you want to manage the student engagement, and that starts from the beginning of doing this, however you end up doing it. It's that you one, set expectations for what the students are going to do. If they don't understand right off the bat what's happening, it's just they'll just check out. So it's from the beginning, you want to definitely set some expectations with the students, so that way they know what's going on. There's other ways to manage the engagement too. I mean, as Zee had mentioned, there's students that will drop out and they will not be part of their group if you're doing a group project. And I mean, that may be something where you have to contact the student as an instructor, contact the student directly. It could even be just your own engagement in the class itself that helps them, the online version or however you're doing it of the class itself, that helps that student or all the students become more engaged. Maybe posting Zee had them post videos, maybe posting your own videos as well, to really get them to feel more involved in the class and create a sense of community in the class and within their group.
So tools, what can we do, right? So you want to record videos, you want to encourage students to collaborate, and we have a lot of tools in our learning management system we can use it. These are external resources that we find very helpful actually for students and to collaborate. I have the Hangout, and I will also give out the URL and the links to all these sites. So basically, ScreenFlow is a screen capture software. So if you want to record your videos, you are definitely should check it out. And also Camtasia is another one, works really well on PC. Zheng is a free software. It does put a watermark on the video, which is annoying, so you might not want to, but you can try it out, see how it works, and to try it out. Audacity is an audio editing software. It's a free software. So if you just want to present slideshows with your recorded voice to go with your slideshow, that's a really good resources. You guys want to talk about the collaboration spaces?
Yes, this fall we're rolling out Slack to all of our students. Not particularly for collaborative classes, but just as a way to kind of integrate all of our online students together, but we're also going to be rolling it out to all of our on-site students. So we're hoping that by creating this platform for all of those students that are online and on-site students will start talking to each other. Because right now only the hybrid students are aware of the online students, yes.
For those who don't know, could you describe what those things are?
Yes, I'll tell you which ones I know about. So Slack is a team-based communication tool. It's a lot like Skype, except it breaks things up into channels, and you can subscribe. Being part of the team, you can subscribe to specific channels that you're interested in. For instance, in game development, we have programmers, we have concept artists, we have designers, we have modelers, we have animators. They might not all want to hear about what the other people are doing. They might only want to talk to animators or only talk to programmers or whatever. So Slack will allow us to do that.
HipChat's the same. Basically, just another version of Slack.
So that's Google Hangout. A lot of students tried it out, and also Adobe Connect, which all the instructors can get access to Adobe Connect. If you're teaching online, you already have that access. But if you're teaching on-site, you can ask your directors and to get access to the Adobe Connect. That's coming in with the Academy. Stacy, you want to talk about Trello?
Trello is an amazing sort of a put my thoughts together. Tool to sort of put things, so you can use it either by yourself or collaboratively, but it's a production pipeline sort of setup where the best, I'm like totally rambling. The best metaphor is sort of like a board of Post-it notes. And you really kind of go up and you can change Post-it notes, you can change categories, you can dig into, drill into Post-it notes and have like links or images or movies embedded, and it's collaborative. So I can invite Z to my board and she can make notes on cards that I make, and it's awesome. It's free. It's very visual. So if you're a very visual thinker, it's perfect. You can color code things, you can organize things. It's like Post-it notes.
So then the team can track the progress and communication tool, and they can track the progress of the project.
Visually. So it's all
Visually,
laid out almost like cards. You can move them to different boards, and
Yeah.
based on your schedule, you can scheduling, you can schedule tasks on it and everything.
Yeah.
So that's a Trello. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Asana is similar. You want to talk about
yeah, I'll talk about Trello really quick too. So it's essentially, if you guys are familiar with agile development, it uses that, and what it displays visually is akin to a sprint board with the Post-it notes. Asana uses a slightly different method of project task tracking. It uses what's called waterfall. Essentially, you can list the priority. It's a list of tasks that you can still assign out to people, but it doesn't have the little cards. It's essentially a list of tasks. If you've been given a task, you get emails when they're due, that kind of thing. Perforce, I mentioned earlier, it's like a library. I want to edit this file, I check it out, I edit it, I write a comment on what I did, I check it back in, then someone else can grab that file and do the same thing. And it keeps track of the versions for us. GitHub, the little octo cat in the right there, is essentially just like Perforce, except it handles binary files it handles text-based files really well. So if you're doing any kind of code, GitHub is really good and really fast. Perforce handles binary files like JPEGs and 3D models and that kind of thing a lot better than GitHub does.
Just a plug of web design media student.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's
Oh,
nice.
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really awesome.
So these are all tools that coexist in parallel with the LMS for
They're
trying
outside,
to reach
they're-
and build a team.
Yeah, they're outside third-party tools.
Are they all free?
No, some of them are, some of them aren't. So I don't know which ones are what.
Is Slack
A lot of
Slack,
them are
Asana, Trello, Perforce, and GitHub are.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Adobe
that's
Connect should be free for all full-time and part-time instructors. If you don't have an online office, you can contact onlineoffice@academyart.edu, and they'll get you set up with Adobe Connect.
So the only actually the paid softwares are the screen capture ones. These are, and everything else are
Has a
free.
free-
Yeah,
has a
everything
free
else
version,
is free. Yeah, it does have a free version, right? Yeah.
And the assumption is that what we have here under collaboration tools that the students as well can access and become part of this community, right?
Correct.
So with Adobe Connect, you're allowing permission for the students to access your office independently of you being there?
Actually, Charlie, you might want to talk about, you guys were thinking of maybe giving students access separately for some kind of experiment. Or that
So there are a couple of different ways that Connect can work. The chief difference being the audio communication. Typically, if any of you have been involved in a meeting, it's probably been using your phone. That's not something that we would just give students unfettered access to for obvious reasons, but there are alternatives to using the phone where we would use computer speakers and the internet for the audio. People would need to use a headset or else you get a really annoying echo when the sound is coming out of your speakers and into your microphone.
Yeah.
On and on. But there are, I'm not Connect expert by any means, but our staff that deals with that can probably answer specific questions about using Connect, if you have them.
Well, I've been using Connect for years for my meetings with students, either by group or individual, but I've never given them access to my office area. If they were in my office, I was there. It was an official meeting. So what I'm trying to get clear is that you're using Adobe Connect for the students to have access to it.
In our department, it would be kind of like a more group critique scenario with the instructor being present.
This instructor is
but we have thought before about allowing students to have, like, maybe we could set up an Adobe Connect office that's for a specific class in a specific section, and it's just up all the time.
Right, okay, that's what I was trying to get clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And one thing, Charles, if I could get you to speak about how to work with online education about using external software in online classes.
So that's something that we have, I would say, relatively recently embraced to a greater degree than we did in the past. There was always, and there is continuing concern about where students are, where they're participating and being credited for that participation and where they're being graded. Because if things are submitted to external sites and never to the LMS, then we don't have a record of it, and any grade or communication that happens in these external things, unless it's connected to our system, which these are not, then there wouldn't be any record of that. So a good example is like YouTube or Vimeo, where students that are creating video files, those tools are ideal and supported by large companies with lots of money and engineering staff. So we're never going to be able to compete with those, and they are, and many others can be industry standard tools that students need to know how to use. So we have done a couple of things. One, allowed students to post their sort of the full version of something external to the LMS and then a token as proof in the discussion. So maybe like a screen cap or a low res version of something with the full version existing outside. We've also recently, has anyone seen the new discussion interface? If you taught in the summer, you would have, and a few of you in the spring. So that's rolling out to 100% of sections for fall. So it'll be our biggest, we've sort of been ramping up since the beginning of the year, and everyone will see it.
I can say it's great.
Great, glad to hear it.
Highly appreciate it.
So one of the new features there is the ability to import certain things. So videos that used to live on YouTube can still live there, but now they can be displayed within the LMS. So we, I think, sort of take a three-part approach. One is making sure that people understand what tools there are in the LMS. Sometimes that includes things that have been around for a long time, but more recently it includes things that we've just rolled out. So everybody might not be aware that you can do X, Y, or Z. So A, we want to make sure that you can do that. B, if there are tools like YouTube or these external sites that are really good at what they do, we don't want to cut off access to them. And in some cases, we are able to incorporate them fairly directly. In other cases, we acknowledge that students will want to and should be able to use them, so we allow that. We do sometimes, or we're going to need some sort of proof. We don't want things to be too external and too cut off. And then the third thing is listening to what your needs are and what students' needs are, and figuring out, is this something that we can incorporate in our ongoing development? We have, every semester we probably roll out a few features here and there, either something brand new, like we're rolling out an instant messaging tool soon, or tweaking something that doesn't work quite the way that we thought it would. So we've done a lot of listening to instructors who have said, this new tool is great, but I really wish it could do this. So if that's within our budget and our timeline, that's something that we try to address as well. And sometimes we don't know what what needs are. I mean, we definitely try to talk to students and faculty and departments about what their needs are. We're in the middle of a project of meeting with all of the departments to listen to them. But if any of you have anything you want to tell me, I can give you my contact information. But so we try to listen up front, then we develop, then we listen again and say, what is working for you well, and what could use improvement. And some of those things might be really niche, and it doesn't make sense for us to try to incorporate that into our system. But if it can do a lot of good for a lot of people, then that's definitely an idea that we're interested in. And it could be a feature that, like, we're just inspired by something. Like, we met with architecture recently, and they mentioned a product called Bluescape that's sort of like a limitless pinup board. And we'll probably talk to that company at some point, but even if we don't end up using that product directly, that concept might be something that influences our future development. So we're definitely always interested in hearing what you want to do and what you can't do that frustrates you. Question?
So you kind of brought this up, but then you veered away from it.
Okay.
Are there currently restrictions on where student work can be submitted for credit? Like, are these all acceptable?
Well,
Or I didn't quite get the.
I might not be familiar enough with all of them to directly address that, but I would say that there are, if an environment is sort of the ideal place for something to live based on what it is, like a movie file, which can also be submitted to the discussion, but if it's just better displayed elsewhere, it might be appropriate for a student to submit it there, but they would still need to submit something to the discussion so that you could grade it.
So is that up to the instructor to make a decision on, or are there guidelines that we should be following?
Jen, do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say largely it's up to the instructor, the specifics of that. I mean, again, as Charles is saying, the critical thing is that there be a record in the LMS, that grading happen within the LMS, and that's both for accreditation purposes, that's also for grievance issues down the road possibly. But yes, as you're saying, we like to obviously give students the opportunity to show their work to its best advantage and in its logical ecosystem, if you will. So, but there does need to be some kind of representation of it in the LMS, even if it's a lower res version or screenshots or whatever's the appropriate.
So if you're using Slack or HipChat or wherever, how does that get documented in the LMS?
For game, we're going to be experimenting with Slack this fall semester. It's purely supplemental. And we have a letter that we're writing to all students inviting them to use Slack and mentioning that it is purely supplemental. They have to have any official course communication has to be done with their instructor in the online class. Essentially what we're trying to do with Slack is to duplicate or replicate the online or the on-site lab culture in an online space. So it's not meant, they might talk about assignments, it's not going to count for attendance, we aren't going to screenshot it and have them posted up into the LMS. If we were going to use it for collaborative classes, then we need to come up with a plan. But right now our plan is just to do it as a purely supplemental thing and see how popular it is, see how many students are using it to kind of develop that lab culture online.
So you've done the same thing, correct?
Yeah, same as us, and we will provide all the resources for students to use, but they still need to turn in their assignments in the LMS if that's required, and they can collaborate outside. This is just additional tools for them, so they won't come back with excuses. I cannot get hold of this person because this person doesn't live in San Francisco or something like that. So there's so many tools out there in the real world when we work, and then we use any of these tools to figure out a way to collaborate with other people who are not local. And these are just the supplemental resources for them to use. And they can still turn in their project. And they don't turn in their project in any of these external tools. They turn in their LMS or wherever they're supposed to drop off in the on-site instructor folder if that's required, everything. So the final project still be there. But the discussion board can be utilized for them to discuss their process. So, okay, we collaborate through Slack or through HipChat, and then this is what we come up with, and they can still write up their discussion reflections within the LMS system. So the whole goal is to bring the on-site and the online closer together. We hope our students have experienced a more coherent experience coming to the academy. Either they're online students or on-site students or they're hybrid students. And we want to have the same experience throughout their entire 6 years, how many years they're going to be here. Yeah, so we want them to have the same experience. Again, so if you have any ideas, you say, oh, I have these ideas to collaborate with on-site students, online students, with a different department, whatever, talk to to your department. And we can always try something. Their online education is here, and they are always willing to help as well. So there are a lot of things that you can experiment within all the rules and everything. So.
If I can say something really quick, I tried on-site collaboration already for about a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been fantastic. However, my current challenge is to motivate my on-site students to participate beyond just dropping things off on the discussion, because I want them to ask questions through the week.
Mm-hmm.
So that gap of 8 days that we have a chance to talk, and some of them they just wait until we're on. Okay, so that's my current challenge right now, getting involved into that participation, because they think, oh, okay, we're just going to talk in the class, so I'll just get back to that when I remember.
Grading is a really great tool for you to encourage your students to collaborate. You put a number on every assignment you need to. For a lot of discussion, I asked them to, this is for my on-site students, so I have a separate discussion for them to do it outside the classroom, and I put a number on it. You need to participate. You also have to comment on other students' comments on their postings, and that's part of the grading rubric as well. So that's another way to get them into the habit to do that.
You said this is for onsite?
Yes.
Yeah, so for standard online class that's not taking part in a collaborative thing, that's something that we've had issues with, and where students will wait until Sunday at 11:55 p.m. right, and then they'll all of a sudden.
And then the LMS crashes.
Yeah,
everyone's trying to upload their work.
Yeah, so what we've done is what Zee exactly said, where they've implemented an instructor set expectations at the beginning that you need to participate, however, so many days in advance. Inevitably, there'll be one or two students who will say, "Well, I can't do that." I'm like, "Well, there's 7 days. You figure out something." So even if it's just for 2 minutes, I go in there and say, "Do something." So.
Yeah, there's also in assignments now, there's the new opportunity to extend closing date for an assignment, so conversation can go on after the submission of the work.
That's very useful, especially for students who, for some reason, literally can't actually check, like they only have access to a computer 1 day a week or something, right? So that's I've actually found that useful in the summer.
In the hybrid learning, is there any kind of mandatory attendance for example, on-site versus strictly just online?
So for attendance and for the hybrid environment, everything, there you have to make it mandatory. That's instructors' friends, actually. You make it mandatory. You put a grade for collaboration projects and everything. Also get students on board from day one. You tell them this is how this class is going to run. We're going to collaborate with people. Either it's on-site class or online class. It doesn't matter. It's always set up the expectation. Day one, you will let the student know our class is going to run slightly different than you're used to, and get them on board from day one.
Any percentage?
Percentage in terms of
in terms of attending in person, in class, as opposed to certain topics or assignment you can do it online versus.
So for academy, I know the on-site students, they have to show up on-site all 50 modules. That's to count the attendance. For the online students, you have to sign in every week, right? So you really doesn't have that certain kind of blended learning module other schools is running. So you can study off-site for 5 weeks, and then the other 10 weeks you have to be on-site. So for academy, you have to be here on-site for 15 weeks to count as count your attendance, everything. So there's not that kind of flexibility, but there are other assignments or projects they can do, because for every hour they are in class, they're supposed to do maybe 3 hours of homework or something like that. So that can count towards their outside classroom time, collaboration time. All right, so we have a handout to pass out to everyone, have our contact information, and Charlie, you probably have your cards and you can give it to everyone if anyone who is out there who is interested in their thing. And
See Curtis at academyart.edu.
yeah, so we didn't get to some other examples, but we already talked about all these content actually already for the question and answer section, everything,
Yeah.
the external tools and everything. And we pass out the resources all in the handout. And we have a couple articles I included in the handout, basically how to do the best practice to do your recording, and about the collaborative project, learning-based learning, project-based learning. All the URLs for all these external tools is here. On that sheet we pass out, also there's the URL link to this presentation, so you can get access to this presentation. I know that the video recording will be available sometime soon for this session.
We can work with faculty development to make sure that you guys all get the recording for us.
It'll be posted on our website.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.